2 years on, and it's a rare, potentially happy day for City Skylines 2 today, as the bike patch is finally here. The bike patch live now is the second most important bit of Cities Skylines 2 news this week, of course, though. You probably saw the development studio behind the franchise, Colossal, has been replaced. From 2026, Iceflake Studios will take over. They are also, coincidentally, a Finnish-based studio, physically barely a stone's throw away from the CO offices. They're an internal Paradox development studio as well, so perhaps the big boys are stepping in. Back to the task at hand today, though. Very quickly following the huge announcement for the future of the City Skylines franchise, the relatively silent comms behind Cities 2 rapidly kicked into gear, came to life, flooding the zone with a developer update and patch notes, actually multiple, as the bike patch was quickly rolled out. The key change here in this update, well, teens, adults, and seniors will now ride bikes and or e-scooters. To support this newfound love of two-wheeled freedom, we see three main free updates, of course, free changes to the game, mostly around infrastructure. New bike parking, bike lanes, and also the decorative yet useful bike paths. The road service upgrade for bicycles include a bike lane, a double bike lane, and a bike restriction, so you can strap those bikes away from certain areas. And of course, more broadly, district policies, as well as the tracking of how useful bike lanes are they actually being used, can be tracked within the options city services as well. If you're not sending your bicyclists along the road with those green dedicated lanes, you can also use the landscaping tool, bicycle paths, and keys to add more. And these tend to be my favorite way to do it because you can sort of cut through the fat, right? You can build them in between roads or around broader park areas, you name it. This is a great way for people to move around your city and to reduce traffic flow, congestion. You get the idea. It's a great tool, it's been a long time coming, and I'm very grateful that both the landscaping and road options are here. Of course, you'll also need somewhere to park your bike. You'll find that within roads, parking spaces, where there are a variety of bike shelters. Some you can place along the side of a road. People can hitch their bike up to it, chuck a keypad on it, right? Alternatively, there are also dedicated shelter buildings. Some of these are very small, so you'll easily be able to find places to put them. Even the largest one, really relative to most of the other stuff in this game, is still pretty small, and I think that's probably a good thing. It makes the bike lanes, more broadly, pretty flexible, and should be fairly usable within your city. Speaking of that usability though, I don't know about you, if you're still playing Cities 2, but I have found some significant issues with the usability and performance of this update. If you're using mods, you'll probably find, if you're anything like me, that your game will crash. Now, of course, part of this is to be expected. Firstly, because they're very much still in beta, and secondly, because the game has been significantly updated. Modders are generally working out of the goodness of their own heart, and of course, it's going to take a little bit of time to get things working properly. However, in my experience, this problem isn't just with my big cities, with modding, and man alive, have I crashed to desktop so many times recording this footage. In fact, I'd like to apologize for the substandard footage in this video. It's literally because I haven't really been able to play with this patch properly, and that's quite disappointing. I have found much more success, as you might imagine, turning off modding, right? A new, fresh playset, no mods, no nothing, just the bare bones, slightly less bare bones these days, vanilla version of City Skylines 2. That does work better on a new save. So, if you're out there, you want to try out the key changes of this patch, the bike parks, the public transport options, etc., that's going to be the way to do it, at least in my humble opinion. Whether your pathway to getting it working is difficult and bumpy like mine, or perhaps relatively successful for you, maybe on your system it's totally fine, you may also notice that the simulation presents some familiar quirks, though of course this time around bikes. I've seen fairly wide-reaching reports of strange bike behavior happening, cyclists ending up in clumps, perhaps not interacting with traffic in the way that give way or normal yield rules might apply. And also, if they struggle to find a parking spot, they seem to get totally lost, totally clumped up. They may decide to do random U-turns and cycle around. It's a little messy. So my advice here would be, at least in the current build, to make sure that you have ample bike parking available. The on-street stuff, the storage, proper storage buildings, all of it. I strongly suggest you're gonna need it. Turning our attention back to the actual patch, the bike patch, sexily named 1.4.2F1, there are a few other changes outside of the actual bike infrastructure, namely in terms of service buildings. This includes a windmill for electricity, as well as some smaller options, including a transformer station, a cemetery. Public transport options also better cater around bikes, and a lot of new train or tram additions, and finally some new parks, mostly large ones, kind of fun. Moreover, beyond actual gameplay changes, really there wasn't much else. A whole load of fixes, ironically, a whole load of crash to desktop fixes, though I'm not quite convinced we've necessarily got to the bottom of that problem. And more broadly, a couple of minor things to controller, art, and miscellaneous fixes. Fixes really was the key thing. But again, ironically, and speaking more broadly to the situation around Cities 2, it's not fixed. Right. Speaking of that broader situation, finally, as I round out this video, relatively quick one, relatively quick news, I just want to really highlight that this patch feels rushed. Maybe your experience is better, right? Absolutely possible. Maybe my version just sucks. I doubt that though. And I feel that this patch update, naturally, has been rushed out by Colossal Order because they only have, a couple of weeks left at best. This is their last Hoorah, and it's unfortunate that it really resembles most of the other ones. Great new features, adding stuff that many Cities Skylines 1 players may have expected to be in the game to begin with, but nonetheless adding good stuff to the game. However, the game is still fundamentally, frankly, a bit of a mess, and the performance with larger cities still sucks. And on that slightly less than cheery note, apologies, that will round out this video. Of course, as we discussed in yesterday's, day before's video, as well as at the start of this one, Cities Skylines 2, and the franchise more broadly apparently, is seeing a new developer. Iceflake Studios, internal management game studio inside of the Paradox machine, and maybe, and the maybe's doing a lot of heavy lifting, but maybe that could be enough that over the next year or so, we see a different version of Cities 2. One that works better and frankly does what it should do. I don't know. But we are in a time of change, and 2026, once we get through the holiday period, will be very telling for the future of this, honestly, at its core, really fun city builder. But on the outside, really not a functional one. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.